As a single professional, I had debt and no savings after my divorce. I always wonder how I can start investing in real estate to secure my future. I studied programs that gave me all the benefits of investing in real estate. Some claim I could start with no money, but I could not find one that gave me the practical, actionable steps I needed. As a wealth advisor, I've met people that own real estate but weren't ahead financially. They were rich, but they weren't wealthy. Then I finally realized that there was one vital component missing that makes someone become wealthy or not. And on this show, I will reveal what I found and give you the step-by-step actions to start investing in real estate and increase your wealth. My name is Araceli. Let's get started. So welcome everyone. This is Araceli, Transition Wealth Advisor and Real Estate Investor in the US and Canada. And today I have a very interesting interview with Laura Locher. And she is going to give us her story on how she got started as a real estate investor. And let me tell you a little bit about Laura. Laura is a computer engineer and a real estate investor. So we have that in common because I'm a mechanical engineer. She's a computer engineer. And so we have that kind of mind. And she is a single mom of a 12-year-old boy who loves computers, marketing, and real estate investing. So she went from being on welfare to owning multiple properties with the help of Airbnb. So currently she is a SuperHost with Airbnb, and her passion is to find ways to make her guests more comfortable with increasing her profits. And she's going to share her story because it's very interesting. Welcome, Laura.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on here. I'm excited to be here and share.
Oh, absolutely. So Laura, the one thing that really struck from our conversation before is that you were on welfare and then started to buy real estate. How did
Yes.
you make the transition? How did you decide in the first place to have real estate as a way to get yourself out of where you were?
I kind of fell into it actually. I was in a place where I was in a really rough spot on welfare and trying to make ends meet. And I was on my way up and I just recently got a job. So I worked with my mom. I had a little bit of help because my mom had a house that she could sell to me, and she sold it to me for market value, but she held the mortgage. So, everyone's in different situations, but I was really blessed that she could hold the mortgage because I never, ever, ever would have got approved for a mortgage by a regular bank. So I still to this day pay her. So I got my first house. But then due to job changes, I had to move. And I was in a tough spot because I didn't want to sell this house because it was a family house, but I had to find a new place to live. And so very quickly I was like, well, I'll need to rent it. And I've got furniture and I didn't have the money. I mean, I still was in a very tough spot. I didn't have the money to move all my furniture up to North Carolina where I was moving. And so I was like, what am I going to do? I have this property, I have this mortgage, and my mom, I love her, but she is not the sort of woman that I could say I can't pay this month. I have to still make these payments regularly. So all of a sudden I thought, well, maybe I can just do Airbnb, which was completely overwhelming for me. I had never rented a property.
One thing that I want to say, Laura, is that you have to think about this actually as a blessing, because if you do have a mortgage with the bank or any financial institutions, they're not going to forgive the payment. You have to pay. And so this is actually a blessing in disguise for you from your mom. So
I totally understand. It's so wonderful now. Back when I was and now even you can tell when I talk about it, I am grateful. But at the time, these were hard things that were happening to me. Not anymore. Now they're blessings. And so I was like, I'll try to Airbnb. I was terrified. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know if it would work. I didn't know anyone else that did it. So it was this huge, big, scary thing for me, identifying, as this welfare mom that wasn't successful and couldn't really make financial gains. It was a big risk, but it worked. And it was easy. And once I started realizing that I was making over my mortgage payment, it helped me pay for my house up in North Carolina. And at that, I was hooked. And that was the beginning of it all. And I was like, this is what I want to do. Like my mortgage is being paid for by somebody else and I'm building equity in this property.
Yeah.
And yeah. And so then now I'm obsessed. So
That's amazing. So this is one of the things that, I have seen multiple times, and you had some financial trouble. I did when I got divorced, and it was very hard because I just couldn't, even with my career in engineering, I was making good money, but I was still struggling because I had debt and I lost the house and I didn't know what to do. And that's when I bought my triplex and I started renting, and that's how everything started. And you had a similar story, but you took the route of doing Airbnb.
yeah.
And that's why I love real estate, because there is no one way to do it right. There's many ways, and you can find, and I hope that the audience really finds the story interesting and also motivational, because for people that never thought about real estate as a supplement or even replacement, your income could be the solution. And it's not a one-way street. You can do flips, you can do rentals, you can do Airbnb, you can do wholesale, lots and lots of ways to do it. You just have to find the right way. So Laura, tell me, so go ahead. You
I
were
was going to say, one of the things I love about Airbnb is that you don't actually have to own a property. You could be renting an apartment and maybe you got an extra room. And as long as
Yep.
it's okay with your landlord, making money by, just having that apartment. So I feel like anybody can start. It's
Yeah.
an easy entry point for any.
Exactly. And the same, like I always recommend people that they have a home, maybe they have a basement that they can convert and make it into different rooms or rent it all by itself. There's many ways to do it. It's just getting started, and it will give you actually the entry point to see if this is for you, if real estate is for you. So the one thing that I wanted to ask you is, tell me, what was the hardest part for you to kind of figure out uh, the real estate investing, specifically in the Airbnb?
Um, well, for me, it was not, I had no idea how quickly I could get something rented. So
Mhm.
it was really the hardest part was the fear of the unknown, which that's almost true of everything, right? It's hard until
Yes.
it's not. It's hard until you know what you're doing. So is how quickly is this going to get rented? Is someone going to mess up my house?
Yeah.
How am I going to manage turning it over? There was just so many unknowns. And initially it was overwhelming because I had no one to turn to for answers. But quickly things fell into place, and I use the Airbnb website, and I mean, I am a super fan of them because they make everything so easy for me and my life and my taxes and my guest. It's amazing. So a lot of those questions just were handled by Airbnb. So, which is good.
So that's awesome. So this is one of the questions that, people have, when they're starting something new. And like you said, everything is in the dark, like you're in the unknown. You're stepping into something that you've never done before. And whether you decide to do Airbnb or rentals or anything like that, there is always something that you're not going to know. There is absolutely no way possible to know everything before you step into it. So the best way to do it is do it. And that's it. And then you're going to answer the questions as you go along, depending on what kind of transaction you're doing. I have done so many flips in the US, and every single one I learned something new. And it was so crazy because there was things that I never imagined I was going to run into. But that's the way it happened. So tell me, what would you recommend someone that is thinking about doing any type of real estate investing? It doesn't matter what it is. What was the point for you, right, that kind of made you decide to do it? And what would they recommend them if somebody's thinking about it?
I think one of the main things is don't do it just for money. Not, I mean, there's tons of money there, but if you're someone that can sit in front of Zillow and have fun looking at the houses, and if you like the idea of looking in the neighborhood and seeing what new things have been done to your neighbor's house, or like seeing cool architecture ideas, there has to be some sort of passion. Making money is exciting, and that's awesome if that's part of it. And it's a great thing about real estate.
Yeah.
But to be successful, I think you have to really like the idea of finding a house, fixing a house, and actually like the idea of providing a nice place for someone to stay, whether it's long term, whether you're selling it. But I think the idea of like providing a home for another person has to be exciting. If it's just transactional, I think maybe you lose some of the spark and you'll get bored. So that's what I think.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree with you. And I think that that's one of the major issues with people with doing anything, not only real estate. But if you are going to get into something new in a new profession, because a lot of people now that they are older, like I'm talking about the 40s or 50s, they're actually changing careers. And it's not unusual. I know probably about half a dozen people that have done that in their 50s. And so you have to find something that you really enjoy. And I totally agree with you on that because I love decorating. I love making changes. I love making repairs myself. That's my background. Even though I'm a mechanical engineer, I always have this idea of how can I improve this? How can I do this? And doing projects with my hands is something that I enjoy doing. But if this is something that you don't like doing, probably real estate is going to be very difficult. It's like any other profession, right? Like if I was going to be a doctor, probably wasn't going to be for me. I don't like people suffering, so probably not for me. So,
My
so what?
mother,
Yeah.
my mother is always, she's like, I don't know how you do it. You have to deal with people needing things or fixing. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
those are fun. For me, they're
Yeah.
fun problems to fix. Or for her, it's overwhelming, scary, a headache. And that's why I was like, Mom, you should never invest in real estate.
Exactly, exactly. So that's why one of the very first things that I talk to people that come into my program is that they need to understand the strategy, their skills, their financial position. Why are they doing what they're doing? Because if they don't have a good reason, they're not going to stick around and they're not going to see results. It's like with absolutely anything. So tell me, if you were going to do something different in real estate, what would you do?
Oh, I would, you know what? I would have more confidence earlier. I think now that I know so much about real estate, I really believe that there's sort of a difference between me and the real estate moguls. But the only difference is knowledge and terminology. I could have been doing bigger deals earlier. Um,
Mhm.
and if I just had not, I just believe there's a really big gap between a beginner and a master investor. And I don't think it's that big. I think it's just some knowledge and experience and who you know. But yeah.
Exactly. Oh, I totally agree with you because the same with me. I have done some deals and the same. I said, well, why didn't I do that? Like I knew exactly what I was doing. Um,
Yeah.
but I think it comes with the territory in everything that you do. As you advance, you get obviously more confident because you've done more deals and now you have kind of a sequence like, oh, I've done it again and I've done it again. And now that builds up your confidence and now you can build and do more or bigger deals as we call it. But I think a deal is a deal. It's not really small or big, but it's the same thing. So this is amazing. So another thing that why real estate? Why didn't you pick something else?
Well, like I said, real estate picked me. I actually picked it when I was about 8 years old, but I didn't know, and I'll tell you in a second. But yeah, real estate picked me because I was forced to rent that house with furniture. And,
Yeah.
I was sad about it. I didn't want to give up my home and my furniture that I had picked for the house, but it ended up being a blessing. But
Yeah.
my mother was a loan officer, a mortgage broker. And when
Oh.
I was younger, she would take me on her routes when she'd go visit realtors and drop off gift baskets. And
Yeah.
these realtors were always at the model homes for these big
Yeah.
builders. So when I was young, the fun idea of going around with my mom and seeing, these big, beautiful houses. And I remember the model names and it just introduced me to seeing all these different homes and different architecture. And I loved it. I felt like I was in, like, I don't know, a castle. And so, yeah, I just fell in love with homes, but I didn't realize that I liked real estate until I was forced into it. And then I was like, oh my gosh, why wasn't I doing this before? This is so fun. I just thought it was beyond me, I think.
I think that we all have that kind of thing growing up. And if it's not taught to you, like I immigrated from Mexico to Canada, and I was never with the idea to create passive income or to buy another property and rent it. I always thought that I was like, oh no, maybe those people they need money. I'm okay, I'm a professional. But it is not about that. It's about creating security and more income for yourself. Because if something, God forbid, happens to you and you can't work, or you go through a transition that wipes you out like it did to me, then how are you going to get money coming in? You really need to secure that future. And I think this is kind of a cultural, I think worldwide, people don't really look for that. And that's basically why I put these videos, because I want people to see where everybody's coming from and that there's no only one good way to do it. So Laura, thank you so much for being here. This is so inspirational for so many people. I so much appreciate that. Do you have any final thoughts that you want to tell the audience?
I think if anyone is excited about real estate, don't put limitations on what you can do, because in real estate, there's so many tools that lets anybody, from having no money to tons of money, be successful. And so don't assume that you can't do something because you have limitations, because real estate's really fun and fancy in that way. Like yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much for being here. I so much appreciate it. And I'm sure the audience is going to find something very, very interesting in your story. Thank you, Laura. We'll see you later.
Bye.
And we'll see you at the next one.
Thank you for being here on the show. Please remember to subscribe and hit the notification bell to get notified when there are more shows available. And if you would like to have more information on how to start investing in real estate, please visit my website at www.aracelihernandez.com. Thank you.